Hey Calvary kids! Welcome back to Moving Through the Bible. I hope you had a great 4th of July weekend. In case you missed it, last week we covered David and Goliath. We made ourselves into David's slingshot and flung a stone at the giant Goliath. David won the battle and King Saul took notice of him. Remember, God selected David to be the next king while Saul was still alive. This was because King Saul didn't always follow God's directions, and God regretted making Saul king. Although Saul didn't know God had selected David, he did notice how David won the battle against Goliath and how David continued afterwards to always win his battles, and people loved him. How do you think that made King Saul feel? Do you think he might have seen David as a threat? I know if I'm the best at something and then someone else comes in and is even better, I might be a little jealous, or maybe even a little bit mad. Let's find out what happens between David and King Saul as David grows up and keeps winning battles. Find a spot where you can sit crisscross applesauce and move around freely. Do you know where you left your telescope tool? That's our handy tool we use to move through the Bible story. There's mine right in front of me. Grab your telescope and look through it to see what you can see. Let's adjust. There he is. It's David's best friend, King Saul's son, Jonathan. Here we go. Hang on tight. We realize that we've arrived when we can hear beautiful music from a lyre or harp. We stretch one hand out and the other hand picks at the strings of the harp. We see David is playing the music for King Saul and his son Jonathan. There's an invisible crocodile in the room. It is beautiful music, but Saul still looks angry. We'll lay on our bellies and we put our hands together in front of us like a crocodile. The crocodile in the room is a metaphor for Saul's anger and jealousy. David keeps winning battles, and the Israelites like David a lot. We open our crocodile's mouth because Saul is worried that David will become king and he will replace him. Chomp, chomp, chomp. Suddenly, Saul flings a spear at David, and David spins out of the way. Spin, spin, spin. Spin, spin, spin. Saul picks up the spear again, and we get ready to spin out of the way again. Saul throws his spear, and we spin and 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 spin. Phew! We are safe. David flees, and we need to move forward through the Bible. Come back on your belly, and this time, roll to the side and move your hands together. Chomp, 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 chomp. We use our big chompers to bite through the pages of the Bible. Chomp, chomp, chomp. Saul continued making attempts on David's life, and David secretly went to his friend Jonathan and said he feared for his life. Jonathan tried to convince his dad Saul to be nice to David, but it only angered Saul. We stop eating and we hop up as Jonathan uses arrows to warn David that Saul wants to kill him. He shoots a couple of arrows. Isn't that arrow beyond you? Hurry, go quickly. This is code and means David should run away and hide. David and Jonathan hug goodbye. Give yourself a big hug. And we come back down onto our bellies. We roll to the other side and we need to chomp through the Bible again. Chomp, chomp, chomp. Now David is hiding in the wilderness. Saul has taken 3,000 men and is looking for David. We see Saul walk into the cave and we follow him. It is really dark. We see David and his men hiding in the back of the cave, but it is so dark, Saul cannot see them. David sneaks up to Saul. Sneak, sneak, sneak. Cuts off a corner of his robe. Will Saul see him? No. Saul walks back out into the sunlight and David follows. David bows down and he says, "My lord the king." Saul turns around and David says, "Why do you believe the people who say I'm trying to hurt you? God handed you over to me today in the cave. I had the chance to kill you, but I showed you mercy." And David lifts up the piece of the robe he had cut off. Saul says, "You are more righteous than I, because you have done what is good to me, and what I have done to you is evil. Most people would kill an enemy, but you have let me go. May God reward you for your kindness." Saul now knows that God was with David and that David would be the king of Israel. Saul left and David and his men returned to their hiding place. It's time to head back out of the story. We sit back down, crisscross, and we think about the protection God gave to David. We breathe in and out. Thanks for helping me tell the story today. Today, we saw that David's best friend, Jonathan, warned him about Saul's anger, and we saw that David showed mercy or kindness to Saul, his enemy, because David trusted God's plan. This ties in with our memory verse this unit. The Lord will keep all of his promises. He is faithful in everything he does. That's Psalm 145, verse 13. That's it for today, Calvary Kids. See you next week.